They're among the most elite fighting forces in the world. They're usually fighting for our nation. Right now, they're fighting for their careers and their livelihoods. Hi, I'm Stuart Shepard, and this is a special edition of First Liberty Live. Have you downloaded our app yet? It is a remarkably convenient way to keep up with the episodes each week as we put them out, and the special episodes. Look on the Apple App Store or Google Play, either one. Download the app. It's free. It's our gift to you, and it will make it a lot easier to follow us here on First Liberty Live. You know, you can watch the videos or you can play them in your car like a podcast. It's really convenient. Mike Berry is General Counsel here at First Liberty Institute. He's also a Lieutenant Colonel in the Marine Corps Reserve. Today you're going to be speaking to us, of course, as a First Liberty attorney. Hi, Mike.
Hey, Stuart.
Thank you for being here. This is an important topic. We are representing, First Liberty is representing 40 Navy SEALs. This is something we weren't expecting. It kind of came to us and this whole thing worked out, but it's an important fight to be engaged in. Why in the world is our own government threatening the SEALs?
Well, why is the ultimate question, Stuart. I suspect it has something to do with religious hostility, overt religious hostility on display by our government. You know, these are, as you said, our nation's elite warriors, one of the most elite fighting forces on the planet. We want them on the front lines defending us, defending our freedoms, but instead, right now, our government is going after them for their religious beliefs. And of course, we're talking about the COVID vaccine mandate that the President has issued, that the Secretary of Defense has issued, and that the Navy has imposed upon our Navy SEAL clients. And all our clients want to do is be able to continue serving with their religious liberty, their rights of conscience intact, and to ask for a religious exemption. They're not challenging the lawfulness of the order, they're just asking to have a religious exemption from the order. And it sounds like the Navy is going to tell us absolutely not.
Now, the part of this that just blows my mind is not only are they putting out an edict for the members of the service, they're also putting restrictions on their family members, at least they're trying to.
Yeah, the way I would characterize it is they're going after their faith, right, for denying the religious exemption. They're going after their families because they're not allowing spouses and children who are not subject to DOD authority, by the way, but they're not allowing them to travel. We're coming up on the Thanksgiving and Christmas season. You're telling me that wife and kids can't go home and visit grandma and grandpa for Thanksgiving and Christmas? That's ridiculous. And then they're also going after their finances. The Navy has said that even if you just ask for a religious accommodation, you might have to give up your the special pay that people in the special operations community get.
Right.
Or if you ask for a religious accommodation and it's denied, the Navy has said we're going to come after you for recoupment of training money.
And that's part of what they're talking about. What's the rest of the punishment that's being threatened? I mean, I understand it's quite a broad range that could happen.
Well, yeah, so we said faith, right?
Yeah.
Family, finances, and then obviously ultimately is the freedom, right? Because they've threatened that they could, the Navy could undertake separation proceedings, involuntary separation proceedings.
Explain what that means.
So there's different ways to leave the military. Usually people want to leave on their own terms, voluntarily, right? Either because they serve 20 years and they retire, or they do 3 years and they decide they want to go to school, or there's something else they want to do with their life. They just wanted the experience that the military gave them.
Yeah.
And then those are sort of the positive ways to leave. The way that you don't want to leave is involuntarily, where the Navy or the military kicks you out. And that can be through a court-martial, that can be through separation proceedings, and that will usually leave a black stain on your record, most likely for the rest of your life, which could cause trouble getting future jobs, cause trouble getting disability benefits, VA benefits, you name it. So these Navy SEALs are under very real threats that could affect their families, their finances, and really affect the ability for them to carry out a living for the rest of their lives.
I can practically hear people watching this saying, come on, Mike, they're not going to fire Navy SEALs. Really?
I say the same thing. I can't help but think to myself, why on earth would the Navy want to go after our Navy SEALs? These are people who are highly trained, highly specialized. They have the ability to do things that very few, if any, other military units are capable of doing. So you would think that look, just read the headlines, right? China is launching hypersonic weapons around the globe. Iran is enriching uranium so they can build a nuclear weapon. You would think that we want every capable person into the fight. And yet here we are, the Navy, instead of addressing the threats to our national security and threats to freedom, instead they're going after our elite warriors and telling them, if you don't get this vaccine, you're done. We're kicking you out, and we're coming after you for your money as well.
And the operations they do, I think, are broader than most people probably realize. We think of the SEALs, we think of them in the water, but the acronym SEAL stands for sea, air, and land. They do it all.
That's right. That's right. Again, they are the elite of the elite. Their training goes on for years. It oftentimes, we talk about the recoupment of training money, the American government will spend anywhere between $1 million to $2 million or more just training them to give them the specialized equipment and expertise that they need to carry out their missions.
So when they say you got to pay it back,
yeah, that's right. So it's
that's a scary thought.
But think about not just the financial hit to the individual Navy SEALs. Think about the effect that it's going to have on America, right? Our national defense. You take one Navy SEAL out of the fight, that makes us less capable. You take 40 out of the fight, that's the equivalent of an entire unit, right? And I'll just say this, collectively, our clients, these 40 SEALs have more than 350 years of combined service experience, more than 100 combat deployments. That's leadership, experience, institutional knowledge and expertise that you can't really put a dollar value on, and you can't just replace with the snap of a finger. It takes years to develop that level of competence and expertise and experience, and the Navy is just willing to wash it away. Over why? Because they have a religious objection to the vaccine.
And the people who have the inherent ability, the natural ability to even attempt that, and the willingness to do it, there aren't that many out there. You can't just go out and find another one.
Yeah, I think the last time I looked at the washout rate for BUDS, which is the legendary training school that sailors have to go through if they want to become a SEAL and earn the title SEAL.
Yeah.
I believe it's somewhere around 85 to 90% don't make it through. So, again, these are the best of the best, and you would think that if we have 40 capable, highly trained Navy SEALs that are willing and able to continue serving this country, our government and our Navy should never, ever be in the position to tell them, well, you're going to have to choose between your faith and serving your country. That's something that we've never had. You would hear that coming out of a place like China or North Korea. You would not expect that to come here in the United States, but yet here we are.
Let's talk about what this is all about at the heart of it. The crux of it is they're asking for a religious accommodation. You've mentioned that already. What is it? How does it work?
A religious accommodation is really quite simple. It's look, there's some policy, regulation, directive, or whatever that applies to you, and you're not saying that you don't have the authority to issue that order, or that order is unlawful or unconstitutional. No, instead you're saying, look, if you can issue an order or a directive. I'm just asking you not to apply it to me in this circumstance, right? I'm asking to be accommodated. And you can think of that in any number of ways. It might be let's say you have a school that has a dress code, right? Well, what if you have a Jewish student who attends that school, and the dress code says you're not allowed to wear any sort of cap or head covering of any kind, and a Jewish student says, well, I'm a person of the Jewish faith, and I wear a yarmulke as part of an article of my faith.
Right.
I'm not asking you to strike that rule or policy from your books. I'm just asking to be accommodated. Or a Muslim student might say, hey, I have to wear a head covering in accordance with my faith. Can I be accommodated? So that's a different context, but to give people an idea of what it means to have a religious accommodation.
Okay. I want to make this crystal clear. Even though each person who joins the military gives up a lot of their personal freedoms once they sign up, they still have certain rights under the law and the Constitution.
Exactly. That's exactly right. So let's start with that premise, right? When you join the military, you understand and recognize, I can't just, when I was in Afghanistan in 2008, right? If I decided, I really feel like going to the movies right now, I couldn't just walk away and go say, hey, guys, see you later. I'm going to go catch a movie, right? I mean, first of all, there are no movie theaters where I was in Afghanistan, so it would be practically impossible. But let's say there were.
Yeah.
No, I have a duty to perform, right? I have to be there to help accomplish the mission. And so, yes, we recognize there are certain limitations and restrictions on our freedoms. but there are some things that are non-negotiable, is how I would say it. And one of those is religious freedom, right? You absolutely have the right, and in military regulations, every branch of the service has a regulation that says something to the equivalent of every person in this branch of the military has the right to observe the tenets of their faith, or if they don't, to observe no religion at all, right? That's called freedom of religion in this country.
Right.
And the Navy is no different. But yet, why is it that when it comes to the vaccine and the vaccine mandate, it's as if they're saying, oh, well, that provision, the First Amendment doesn't apply in this instance. Well, that's not how the law works, all right? And in this case, it's not, the Navy doesn't get to just say the law doesn't apply in this situation. They actually have to meet the legal standard to be able to do that.
Now, this is not a new thing. Explain for us what some of the precedents are that have already been established as far as military law and religious accommodation.
Well, sure. As I mentioned, you can start with federal law, right? Federal law, the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, which I'm sure we've talked about on First Liberty Live many times in the past. It's also known as RFRA. That's the shorthand for it.
Yeah.
RFRA says that every person in America has the right to free exercise of religion. And if the government substantially burdens that free exercise or substantially burdens your sincerely held religious beliefs, then the government is the one that has to bear the burden of establishing a compelling government interest that's advanced by the least restrictive means.
And I always like to point out that law was passed in the 90s and signed by Democrat President Bill Clinton with a majority in both chambers of Congress.
Near unanimous support in both houses. Actually co-sponsored by Senator, then Representative Chuck Schumer.
Exactly. Okay, go ahead.
So we have laws at the federal level. Those have sort of trickled down into the DoD, in Department of Defense, and at the Pentagon, and they now also have provisions in DoD regulations in every individual branch. So let's talk about the Navy, since we're talking about Navy SEALs.
Yeah.
All right. The Navy has a regulation. It's actually Secretary of the Navy Instruction 1730.8b, 8 Bravo, as you would say if you were in the military.
Yeah.
So I only remember that because I may have read it once or twice. But
it's come up along the way.
Yeah, it's just come up, during normal course of business. So SecNav Instruction 1730.8 Bravo lays out that yes, service members have the right to ask for an accommodation or an exemption from an otherwise applicable policy or regulation. And then it lays out the standard that we just discussed, the standard that's established in RFRA.
Right.
And so the law itself, the regulation itself, already contemplates, hey, there are going to be people who have a religious objection to whatever the policy is, and that's okay. Here's how we deal with that. So it's not like, for the folks out there who are saying, well, you just give up all your rights when you serve in the military. Well, that's not true, right? And even the regulations themselves say, no, there is a way for us to accommodate that. And I think, to use historical examples to show the precedent, we need look no further than there are, you go all the way back into our history. In World War II, all right, there was a soldier, a U.S. Army soldier by the name of Desmond Doss, all right? And Desmond Doss, his religious beliefs were such that he believed that it was wrong for him to take another life, to kill, because of his Christian beliefs. And so when he was drafted into the Army, he asked for an exemption and said, look, I want to serve my country. I'm happy to serve my country and to do my duty, right, in support of our nation, to defend our nation and help the war effort, but I can't carry a weapon because that's an instrument of death that would cause me to kill another human being, and I can't do that because that violates my conscience and my religious beliefs. In the Army, their first reaction was court-martial. Right?
Yeah.
You do this or else.
And we're not surprised at that. I mean, that's a reaction you might expect.
Well, and what was the reaction? Much like what we're hearing today. Hey, you're in the Army. You got to follow those orders. You give up your freedom when you're in the Army.
That's what the Army does.
Yeah, and so Desmond Doss said, I don't think that's right. I believe that I have a constitutional right under the First Amendment and under, we didn't have RFRA at that time. Yeah. And guess what? Lo and behold, the Army came to its senses. And they said, you know what? There's got to be a way to let this guy serve, to serve this country, to help the war effort, without causing him to violate his religious conscience and his religious freedom. And they said, we're going to make him a medic. Right? You'll still be serving in uniform. You'll still be helping the war effort, but you don't have to carry a weapon. And instead of taking lives, you're going to be saving lives. And you know what the rest of the story is with Desmond Doss?
I think they made a movie about it.
They did. And why? Why did they make a movie about it? Because he went on to receive the Medal of Honor because he saved 70 lives. So that's what happens when our government and our military figures out a way and says, you know what? We can accommodate him. You know, we can accommodate our service members when they have a sincerely held religious belief that conflicts with Army policy or military policy, and good things happen. And so my point is, if we were able to do that in World War II, right, an existential threat to our country and really to our way of life,
yeah, and the
surely
world.
we can, to the world,
yeah.
Surely we can do that now.
Now, we're down to the end here, so I just want to give you a chance to summarize as quickly and briefly as you can what it's about, what a religious accommodation is.
I have a hard time doing things quickly.
I know, but you think in bullet points. So,
no pun intended.
Yeah, exactly. What a religious accommodation is, what they're asking for, what an accommodation is, and what the right solution would be. Just summarize it for me.
Sure. Well, look, I'll just put it like this. First Liberty Institute represents 40 U.S. Navy SEALs who have asked the Navy to give them an accommodation from the COVID-19 vaccine mandate, allow them to continue serving with their rights of conscience and their religious freedom intact, find some other way, just like we did with Desmond Doss, to allow them to serve without having to get the vaccine. We can talk about all the ways that the Navy could do that at another time. And instead, the Navy should stop. We're asking the Navy to stop punishing them, punishing their faith, punishing their families, punishing their finances, and punishing their freedom. All right, and I guess the next step would be, what happens if the Navy doesn't? First Liberty is prepared to file a lawsuit if we have to in order to vindicate their rights and to seek justice for these brave warriors. I think that's how I would summarize where we are right now.
Nicely done. Mike Berry, thank you for your service. Thank you for your insights today. Thank you for summarizing this so well. We wish you well as you battle this one.
Well, thank you. And we're all in it for these Navy SEALs because we know how much they do and they sacrifice for us. We also recognize, though, that it's not just the Navy SEALs. We know that there are tens of thousands of service members who are in the same situation, and our hope is that if we can provide relief and get a victory for these SEALs, that, to use another pun, a rising tide is going to lift all ships.
Yeah, and we do not, I want to make clear, people wonder how we do what we do. They'll never get a bill from us for this representation.
Correct.
That's what we do as part of being First Liberty, being a nonprofit law firm.
Correct. This is our service to America.
All right. Mike, thanks again. Appreciate it. Hey, if you want to be a part of this, if you want to connect with this, if this resonates with you, we've set up a special page on our website where you can sign a letter of support for the Navy SEALs that we were just talking about. You can also add your own personal note of encouragement if you like. We've got a little box on there that you can add your own thoughts if you want to, not required to, but you can add a note there if you like. It's easy, takes less than a minute, and we invite you to do that. And while you're there, if you would like to help us, help not just the Navy SEALs, but all of our clients that we represent in the fight for religious freedom in this country, would you consider making a gift to First Liberty Institute? That's how we're able to do what we do without giving a bill to any of our clients ever. Hey, we will be back on our usual Thursday next week with an author of an important book. I've got a copy right here. It's called Live Not by Lies. Our theme this month has been Live Not in Fear and Live Not by Lies. This is by Rod Dreher. He's going to be our guest on Thursday right here on First Liberty Live.